Hi, I'm Jamie. This is Dead Dodge Garage, and this is my super rare and yet somehow not super desirable 1979 Chrysler 300. As you can see, Mother Nature's kind of trying to eat it. A situation I'm not all that excited about. This has been going on for too long. I need to get this unit out of the bushes. I don't even remember how long it's been since my friend Belle James, who frequents our Sunday live stream chats, handed me the keys to this thing. It's been quite a while. I do know that rebuilding a thermoquad for my 20,000 subscriber special with my sister was the last thing I really did. Well, and a couple weeks after that, I did install that carburetor. At that point, it was running pretty sweet. My next plan was to do the front brakes, which still hasn't happened. I do know that I told my brother he had to help me with those brakes after we finished the brakes on the 67 Fastback Barracuda I traded him. And he has informed me that somehow that was over a year ago. If you don't know anything about the 1979 Chrysler 300, well, there's probably more than one of you. Essentially, this is a fancy Chrysler Cordoba. This was the last of the Chrysler 300s until the 300M in '99 or whenever that was. Essentially what they did was took the base Cordoba, threw a bunch of 300 emblems on it, and some red, white, and blue stuff. As you can see, my car is kind of missing some of that. Some simulated vents, some bespoke aluminum wheels, and other nice pieces. There's a special 300 only crosshair grille. This goofy trim, which does not seem to have been found on all models, but mine has it, unfortunately. Notice it does not have a vinyl top or goofy lights right here. 300 badges. So many 300 badges. As far as the outside of the car goes, that's pretty much all that separates it from a normal Cordoba. Now, depending on what number you believe, there were either only 2,500, 4,000-ish, or 5,000-ish of these cars made. In America, they only came in Spinnaker white. If you bought one in Canada, you could have it in red, although there aren't very many of those cars out there. They all came with this same red leather interior. Note, this is rich Corinthian leather, but it wasn't advertised as such on the 300. Oh, was that like that? I don't think it was. Man. Entropy. Anyway, there are various interesting points in here. The engine-turned dash finish, for example. The center console. This is a late B-body specific piece. It has a floor shifter with a wooden decal on the knob for some reason. This shifter is very similar to the one that was used in E-bodies, although it does not slapstick. It's just a standard shifter. But it does light up here with a stripe that changes colors based on what gear you're in, which is pretty cool. There's a clock, pretty much the height of automotive luxury, and another 300 badge. Very good. It has an 8-track player, which is kind of awesome. I have a tape I probably could test in that, but I really don't want to ruin it. The car has rear defrost, it has delay wipers, it has whatever that is. It has power windows. Note the driver door is taken apart because the window motor in there is actually bad and you have to lift the glass up. I have a new one for it. It also has cruise control. Wow! Here's the missing red, white, and blue applique for the driver's side. Note, although a good few of the special 300 things are not seen on the car right now, just about all of them came with it, which is awesome. This car has 73,370.7 kilometers because the speedometer is in kilometers per hour for some reason. Well, okay, I know what the reason is. Canada. In case you can't just do that conversion in your head, which I can't. That means this car has like 45,500 miles on it, which is just incredible. I feel like I'm going into too much detail here. If you're really curious about what this car is, you could just go back and watch my older videos on it. Anyway, under the hood, the best engine you could get in a 79 Cordoba, a 360. Entropy. Anyway, it's not just any 360. This is a 4-barrel E58 high endurance police package. 4-barrel 360. And that's cool. In fact, the police equipment goes beyond the engine itself. There's a big giant alternator as an example. That's a heavy-duty 100-amp police car piece. What they did to make this car awesome in 1979, given that big blocks were gone and, well, they couldn't exactly make it a 300-horsepower rocket ship, they threw every cool piece of police equipment and heavy-duty stuff they had in the catalog at this car. It's got heavy-duty springs, heavy-duty shocks, heavy-duty brakes, front and rear sway bars. It's actually quite the package. And remember, this is a mid-size B-body car. Yeah, it's a bloated 70s model, but still, it's relatively lightweight and relatively capable. Yeah, relatively light compared to like a Boeing 727. Anywho, from the beginning, my goal for this car has been to transform it into a usable, awesome daily driver. And today, I'm going to take a few more steps to try and make that happen. First, we'll find out if this thing still runs. Now, as mentioned in a previous video, which was actually a live stream, I built a thermal quad for this car. I was hoping to install it during that live stream, but that didn't happen. So I installed it in a later video. And actually, once that was on there, this thing finally ran pretty darn well. It's got a Pertronix ignition back there, and that completes the package, which I use to delete the factory lean burn system. You probably noticed this. This is the fuel reservoir that's currently running this thing. It's not ideal. One of these days, I really need to tackle the fuel tank, but I don't know if I'm emotionally prepared for that just yet. I'm also not emotionally prepared to buy tires, but it's on the list. If it fires up and runs, and the brakes finally work correctly, well, I think we're gonna have to wash this thing. Get it looking slightly better, you know? That'll be good inspiration to keep going on it, I hope. Oh, that's where my transmission jack ratchet strap went. There's actually still some fuel in there somehow. Why is everything all moldy? Oh, another part that was included and is much needed. Door window seals. They're little not so good. Spider crawled on me! Anyway, the interior lights weren't working at first. Now they are, but so is the buzzer, which, oh, that's just for the light switch, which I think I need to replace because it feels horrible. Hopefully this electric pump is still good and I don't have to prime it. God, that's a horrible noise. I don't hear a pump. Ah, I forgot an important step. Pump ground wire. This was a nice set of retractable test leads. They're not so nice anymore. Anyway, that still doesn't do anything. There it goes. Just had to hit it. Sounds like gas moving, I think. Is it pouring everywhere yet? A commenter on one of my revival videos recently asked, why the hate for the mechanical fuel pump? I don't have any hate for mechanical fuel pumps. I love them. It's just that these electric things hooked to a gas can sure help to start stuff that's been sitting forever. Fasten belts. No, I'm good. Why does it sound like this thing has like a skip? Does it have a weak cylinder? Did it have that before? Okay. Pretty sure we're pumping fuel, but maybe we're not. Oh, yes, maybe. Yeah. Nice. Oh yeah, one of the mufflers is blown out, I think. Piece of garbage. Really? Okay. This is an almost correct 4-barrel air cleaner. Don't even remember where this came from. If I had the factory air pipe thing, I could actually connect that too. Anyway. Yep, it's a carburetor. Plenty of fuel getting in there. It even smells like gas. Big money! So either we have an ignition problem or it's flooded or something. I did a spark check and there wasn't any. But check this out. The tach is getting a signal. So I think the coil just died, which is really funny. Well, at least a little funny. Way back when I got this thing running, I installed this Pertronix standalone distributor dealy bob. Here are the 2 wires coming from that to the coil. It runs off of coil positive through the ballast resistor. And according to their instructions, that's fine. I think they prefer full 12, but they work on this no problem. Because I'm seeing a tach signal, that tells me that this distributor is still triggering this coil, but there is no spark. I checked. I also checked the coil wire for any like horrible corrosion, and there wasn't any. Now, it just so happened I pulled a perfectly good coil off of the 63 Valiant very recently. Yeah, it's horribly greasy and dented, Just disgusting. But we're gonna use this to test the theory. Yes, I could just grab a multimeter and check the resistance in the coil that's on the car, but I'm pretty sure this is the issue. So that did nothing. Okay, it's definitely sparking now, but it's kind of orange and bad looking. We'll see if it wants to run, I guess. Also, it wasn't supposed to rain today. Remind me to get the wiper stuff back on this car. That's kind of required in Western Washington. It's really easy to short this out on ground for some reason. Okay, it was flooded. Like that. Gas. Now gas. Are we getting gas? No. No, we're not. We should be. Okay, there's plenty of gas. Just stupid, I guess. Put belts on the list while we're at it. Come on, dude. See, it actually runs pretty well when it runs. The exhaust is coming out of some plants. You know, what's weird is the brakes actually feel kind of okay today. Don't worry about the growth. Also, the brake lights are stuck on. I am completely blind right now. I think this is good-ish. How wide is this thing? Last time I had this thing running, I played with the light switch long enough to get the dash lights kind of sort of operable. There you go. Now you can see the colored stripe in the shifter. Turns red in reverse. It's yellow in neutral and park, and then turns green in drive. So cool. I swear it ran better before. And what's weird is, I know the accelerator pump works. It's just not enough, I guess. Brake lights are still stuck on, and that includes that middle one. Those weren't mandated till like 1985, yet this has one. Don't ask me why I know that. Dude, it's been so long since I looked in here. I didn't remember there was a brand new fuel pump. We need that, I think. Wire separators, interesting. There are some brake rotors, although I'm hoping to leave those alone. These are standard Cordoba hubcaps. Don't want those. There's the missing fancy 300 wheel with its cap, I think. Oh yeah, there's another spare cap, but that is also not a 300 one. I do have the little center emblem to put on it though. That would solve that problem. There are all kinds of tools and little tidbits. Ooh, nice new plug wires and at least one belt. As you could probably hear there, it needs some belts. I think all the wiper stuff's in this pile over here too. Gonna need to get into that. This is a box labeled 79-300 brakes. It's been sitting in this exact spot for a really long time. There's even more here. I don't know what this is necessarily. Oh no, this is the window motor. Nice. Another gift from Bell James. He really just wants to see this car put all together. I've been putting that off for way too long. These are remanufactured brake calipers. Tom found them and said, hey, you probably need these for your 79 Chrysler. Go ahead and take those. And then a few months later, he was like, hey, did you take those calipers? Can I have them back? No. There are brake pads there. And I actually got hoses. Wow. And wheel cylinders. So I guess we're getting into all 4 brakes today. Incidentally, this car must have had some brake work not too long before it ended up in a junkyard. This is a fancy adapter brake line from O'Reilly, I believe. Wait, did I do that? Yes, I did that. I also installed the brake pedal because I guess it wasn't there. Dang, that car looked nice when I parked it in the bushes. Also, I had hair. This is also a somewhat recent master cylinder, so hopefully all of this is still fine. Well, it's in the air now, and since I'm taking all the wheels off anyway, I did kind of put out the feelers for some tires that hold air. I'm not ready to go buy brand new or anything, but if one of the local shops has some used ones, that would be great. So I'm waiting for a call back on that, and we'll see what happens. Oh, I also want everyone to know that removing those center caps is the dumbest thing in the world. Anyway, now we're looking at the brakes, which look, tasty. I think I might have said something like this car has heavy-duty brakes. In reality, I'm pretty sure these are the same disc brakes that all other A, B, C, F, M, J's got for years. It's just a slide-type caliper and a hubbed rotor. Pretty standard stuff, really. This one's kind of covered in dead spiders, so that's cool. Dude, these brakes were brand new when this thing was parked. This one on the driver's side even spins nice. Let it be known the one on the passenger front, not so much. That caliper's dragging slightly. This is kind of a bummer, because yeah, these pads were just beautiful. And these rotors have no ridge. Well, tiny bit of ridge. Almost no ridge. I'm pretty sure all the brakes were done. And then this thing was sent to a junkyard. Anyway, we need to replace at least the hydraulic components. Step 1 is spraying the brake hose connections with PB Blaster, which I was given for free. Works pretty well, despite what some people like to say. You like the light shining through my beard there? You know, I probably would have just been money ahead to buy these from a store because all of the hardware is missing. No bolt, no copper washers, although thankfully they are included with the line. No replacement clips. Usually these calipers come with bolts too. So I guess I get to use all the crusty old stuff for that. Miraculously, the hardware did all come apart on both sides with no problem. Now I just got to deal with this nightmare. If you've ever worked on a 73 and up B-body, Charger, Coronet, Satellite, any of those, this setup should look very familiar to you. It's exactly the same. And obviously, this car could definitely benefit from some new isolator bushings. Among other things, we're not dealing with that today. Hey, the good news is the front shocks were done at the same time as the brakes. The bad news is those are the cheapest shocks money can buy. The even more bad news is this driver's side strut rod is bent. As you can see, the big tubular sway bar clamps onto it. That could be related. You may have noticed that horrible squealing earlier. Well, there are a couple possible reasons for that. For one thing, this power steering belt is totally wasted. But also, the double belts on the alternator and the air conditioning pump, just as bad. And you can see from that angle, they are not stretched the same amount. Back in the bad old days, you could get matched belts for these doubled up setups. Those pretty much don't exist anymore. And even if you buy two belts that are supposed to be the same size, they probably aren't. This is why every single AC car squeals. I keep forgetting the oil filter adapter leaks really bad. I need to fix that. I completely forgot. This car actually does have a nice full exhaust system with an H-pipe and everything. The issue is that muffler. It's kind of missing an important piece. In my limited testing to this point, I have found this thing to handle excellent. And the sway bars front and rear are definitely a big part of that. That and the springs. Incidentally, these also appear to be front torque boxes, although let it be known it doesn't have them in the rear. Torque boxes were an extra bit of structural reinforcement for the unibody. These were first fitted to Chrysler convertibles. They were later used on performance cars, like factory Hemi cars, for example. These were also often found, but not always, on 340 cars. This passenger side line, which looked the better of the two, came right apart. No problem. Notice there's zero brake fluid coming out. That could be an issue. but we'll deal with that in a bit here. This driver's side line is a different deal. I've sprayed it, heated it, brushed it, sprayed it, heated it again, wrenched on it carefully back and forth, but I cannot get the line nut to spin on the line. So now I've got the flexible line unclipped, pulled down. I'm gonna pop it off of the caliper side and then I'll just spin it out. At that point, I'll get spray up in here and see if I can break it loose. If not, I'll reinstall the new one the same stupid way. Found an old newspaper in one of those caliper boxes. I knew they were old, but apparently the amount of old they are is late 1985. And they came from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Neat. Yeah, that worked. I don't love it, but it worked. So you're putting new brake pads in your classic Mopar. The caliper is probably going to look like this. In fact, the calipers on Dodge trucks were almost exactly the same into the 90s. This design is pretty common. The outer pad that sits away from the piston looks like this. The pad locks into the caliper, like so, kinda. It sits here. Notice that tab does not hold it tight. You want to take a hammer and lightly tap these tabs down so that your pad will actually lock into the caliper. Otherwise, you're going to hear this knocking around literally forever. Funny enough, Chevrolet brakes use a similar design for their brake pad. Like the LLVs I'm always working on for the local post office. Those pads require the same modification. There you go. Now the inner pad on the piston side looks like this. Here's the fancy new one with its chamfered edges compared to the old one I took out, which again was practically brand new. Oh well. This piston side pad just sits like that. You can actually install this in the bracket before you drop the caliper on. These tabs hold it in that bracket. Just like so. I probably should have cleaned all of this. Then the caliper with the outer pad just sits right over it like this. Just kind of hangs out there. And all that keeps it from falling off are the metal clips and these tiny bolts. It works, I promise. And finally, the brake hose is attached here. There's a flat on this side that aligns it and makes sure it is pointed the right direction. Note, there will be copper washers above and below this chunk of the line, and then a bolt going through the middle. That completes this banjo fitting. The front brakes are together and ready for bleeding. For now, I think I've made an executive decision on going through the rear brakes. These actually work, and there are no leaks or anything. I was going to replace the rear hydraulics just because, you know, and I may still do that. This hose doesn't look amazing or anything, but it's not cracked to pieces. And again, there's no fluid pouring out anywhere, so I think these are probably okay for now. Or to put that another way, I'm lazy and I don't feel like it, so let's bleed some brakes. This is a vacuum bleeder, and it is my friend. Kind of. Actually, this thing has been a thorn in my side forever. I always have problems with the seals and the bleeding cap there. I've had like 3 of them. This one currently works, but only because it's like 2 months old. Anyway, this is actually a vacuum and pressure tester. A mighty vac. It has all kinds of useful purposes, but this is its main job in my world. Now normally, if I can, I simply gravity bleed brakes. To do that, you open the bleeder and you let fluid come out. But as you saw when I was removing these calipers and lines, there was a little bit of residual fluid in the caliper. There was nothing in these lines. And the whole time they were open, which was like an hour, nothing ever came out. So that tells me that those lines were dry for a long, long time. I poured fluid into this master cylinder when I first got this car driving and kind of sort of got some brakes, although I'm fairly certain they were all in the rear. I have a hunch that the proportioning valve, which is actually a combination valve, mounted under the master cylinder, was closing off fluid pressure to the front brakes. That's what it's designed to do if there's a hydraulic issue. At this point, I've connected this vacuum bleeder and pulled some fluid through for a while, and now when I open that bleeder, fluid does come out. So I know we've got a good path to the master cylinder, and all is well. Okay, I just had a memory. I think I did replace that line. Duh. Pretty sure it was just like rusted off and broken. But I never bled the front brakes. I just kind of pumped the pedal until there were some brakes. They were all rear brakes. So now I'm rectifying that situation. Anyway, now I'm vacuum bleeding the other side. It's kind of a slow process, especially using this tiny rubber hose. You can see fluid dribbling in there. Very good. First test of the brake pedal. I would expect it to be fairly soft and the pedal to travel about halfway down for the first several presses as the pistons in the calipers slide the pads out toward the rotor and take some fluid to do so. Well, it kind of seems like it's going more than halfway down, doesn't it? Starting to feel like brakes, but not enough. So I guess I'm gonna keep bleeding. And maybe I'll check the adjustment on the rear brakes. That would be a good idea. Tons of air bubbles came out when I first opened this bleeder. A little bit left now. That's usually what you want to see. You pump the brakes a few times, you should see any air that's left gathering right here at the bleeder. It's not 100% or anything, but that's been my experience. There you go. Bunches of air. Give that a minute and we'll close it up and it should be good. Rear brake adjustment. The right was pretty much good. The left, which I showed a minute ago, was completely loose. So I did tighten the adjuster on this side to just get the brakes to drag. And now it should do something. The interesting part about that is the adjuster moved totally freely and I can hear it clicking in there, which means the arm and everything is in place. I don't know why it would have been so loose. If you don't know, this style of drum brake, which is a typical Bendix design seen on many vehicles in the classic era, and even on into almost modern times, you know, before four-wheel disc brakes. Anyway, they're adjusted with a self-adjuster. It's a screw assembly that sits, in this case, in the bottom of the brake, and there's a little arm and a spring and a cable that hold it locked. It is supposed to self-adjust when the car is driven in reverse and the brake pedal is applied, which sometimes even works. You can also get in and adjust them manually through one of these access holes, which is what I did. They should only turn in one direction and they should click as you're adjusting them. If that mechanism isn't working properly, you can end up with totally loose rear drums, which is what's going on in the rear right drum of my ramp truck, incidentally. If you've got a car with drum brakes and you have a soft brake pedal, the adjustment of the drums, good place to start looking for problems. With those issues solved, we should have a solid brake pedal. Well, it's fairly solid. It feels good, so I'm pretty happy with that. Well, I never got a call back on tires, which means this garbage is regrettably going back on for now. My biggest problem is a couple of them just go flat. Future Jamie problem, I guess. The driveway just looks wrong with that car moved. Another cool part that appeared as if by magic. It's this heater control valve for the air conditioning system. Two things about this. First, it was new in the box, which is really cool. New old stock part, but it's slightly wrong. And it might be slightly wrong because it's actually not a real Mopar part. It came in this box, which sure looks like a Mopar part box until you realize that emblem is not a Pentastar. It's a 6-pointed star. It turns out this counterfeit brand made all kinds of parts for Chryslers back in the day, and these would actually wind up in dealerships. I don't know if this is just the wrong number for this car, or if it's wrong because this company made it. Either way, the hoses are two different sizes, which I don't believe they should be in this application. In big block applications, that is correct, but I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be 5/8 on both sides. Also, the construction of the valve is totally different. In the pictures I've seen of these engine compartments from the day, the vacuum section is much taller, the lines stick further down, and they're actually angled this way to line up with that heater hose. This one is missing because someone ripped it off at the junkyard and the heater hose was cut. I replaced it with this chunk of rubber. I'd like to get a valve back in here, but apparently that's not happening today. Door window seal. Just kind of popped the crappy old one out and put this one in. It really just rolls in and locks right in that groove. Couldn't be much easier. I had to stretch it a little bit. There are 3 clips in the front that have to go in certain holes, so that's done. Down here, there was no hole for this clip, and so I added that. It was just kind of flopping around without it. The original was glued right here. I'm going to find some 3M double stick tape and put it behind this little tail here, and then it should squish into this corner nicely. Window motor. For some reason, the new one is longer, doesn't have the lower support bracket, doesn't come with the drive gear or a plug. So I get to fix all that, except for the whole bracket thing. I guess they decided the 3 bolts were good enough. Interesting fact. With the window motor removed completely, the window still just kind of hangs out. You can push it up and down wherever you want it to go with no issue at all. It rides on this pole here, but there's definitely a wound spring in there to combat the weight of the glass. Anyway, the new motor's in and it works. mostly, but the window won't roll down very far because this collar thing is jamming up, and I don't know why it exists. It's like a chunk of rubber or fiber or something. Anyway, I'm gonna grease it and hopefully it will just move. That would be good. That actually worked. Yay. I'm so excited to have a window that closes. A driver's door panel. Yay. This is actually an extra that matched that spare passenger one. The original was broken slightly in that area. The carpet was peeling off pretty badly, which this one also is. And somehow it was even more sun-baked and horrible than this one. Oh, also it was broken down the middle, kinda. I do still need to transfer over the convenience light that goes here, which I have a shiny new lens for. That's cool. Almost more important than that though, an inner door handle. That would be nice, and I haven't seen one yet. I spoke too soon. I just found a box of all the most important stuff. The corner marker, blinker lens that was missing. There it is. Driver's inside door handle, a bunch of LED bulbs. I'm probably not going to use those. I don't believe in LEDs. A crown. I don't know where that goes. Oh, probably nowhere on this car because it says Cordoba, but that might go somewhere. Also, the 3 vents that are missing off the passenger side. That one doesn't have black inserts. That one might be like NOS or something. Anyway, they don't match, but there they are. I was going to try and piece the wiper system together, but it turns out that wiper motor's bad. Or there's some other goofy electrical thing going on, I'm not sure, but it won't do anything. I even tried beating it and making sure it was grounded. So I guess I'll put a pin in that. Dude, that is way too nice. Also, still need to get new headlight bulbs. That one is blown out. Didn't find door handle hardware. It's standard Chrysler stuff. I'll scare something up. Anyway, with just that done, it's already so much nicer in here. Don't mind the fact that the horn button fell off again. I don't want to talk about that. The day is quickly getting away from me, and it's going to be like dark soon, so it's pretty much now or never on washing this thing. Let's do that. Yes, if it wants to run again. I will set you on fire! I just have to hold the choke closed and open the throttle every single time I start it. Also, it's not really charging. Like, kind of, sort of, almost charging. Could have something to do with the horrible slipping belts, I suppose. I haven't actually cut in these brake pads yet. So the rear right is still prematurely locking, but they feel like brakes, and it does slow down and stop. So I think that's gonna be good. Also, did I mention there's like a quart of gas left in this thing? Why so long? Another episode of Dead Detail Garage. Why's the water pressure so terrible? This thing's kind of gross. Gee, I wonder why. You know, that vinyl side trim is just awful. And again, not all cars had it. I don't know if that's because smart owners deleted them decades ago or what, but it was factory. I kind of never want to see it again anyway, so it might magically disappear. We'll see. Why does that window leak? Gross. I bet that's a common rust spot. This is always fun. Yeah. Yummy snacks. Have you noticed that trim's painted white? Yep. It's gonna be cleaner. Hashtag Transformation Tuesday. It actually is Tuesday. Hey, some of it's cleaning up pretty well. Unfortunately, this area is not at all. That staining is like in there. And I'll tell you why that is. Aftermarket paint. It's not that factory paint was amazing or anything, but it tends to hold up very well, and it doesn't stain like this. It's possible to get that out with way too much work, if you're lucky, but that's not happening today. This looks good though, other than that, because aftermarket paint. You know, I've been asked in the past why I don't pressure wash these cars. In fact, at one time, there was a plan to set up a fund to buy me a pressure washer. Yeah, I have one. I choose not to use it. And that's because on paint like this, especially that's been repaired and is flaky in places, you start hitting it with a pressure washer, that paint's not gonna exist anymore. So I prefer to do the hand wash. Plus it's, I don't know, fun. One of the few like slow, relaxing things I ever get to do. Yeah, it's getting dark on me. Even so, it is very easy to tell that this driver's side is the good side. And that's great because I don't have to see the passenger side much. Let it be noted though, this driver door has been painted. There's bodywork there and paint's flaking off. And then there are of course those great surface rust staining spots. Still better than the other side, I guess. My new window gasket is kind of holding up. There are only a couple trails of water behind it. I'm gonna call that a win compared to what that looked like before. I really wanted to detail the inside, but I'm out of time for that. Back here kind of sucks too. I actually have a spare trunk lid for this. It's even white, but it's frankly not a whole lot better. And there you have it, a fully restored, all original 1979 Chrysler 300 in mint condition. First generation white B-body, last generation white B-body. It's all coming together. This car still needs a lot. It needs all those things I said it needed, but then didn't do during this video. It doesn't run all that well, which is weird. Thought it ran pretty nice when I finished the carburetor. It's only slightly disappointing. I can't take it for a proper test drive because it's gonna run out of fuel any second. I don't have any more to put in it. And also, it doesn't have a license plate. Not that that's stopped me in the past. For now, I'm just gonna be happy for as good as it is and revel in the fact that it still runs, as long as I have a jump box. Why though? Why? Those worked before. I truly don't know how it's still running. Hey, either way, just a day of progress and this is already looking like a way more viable project candidate. And I couldn't be more excited. Seriously, how did it not run out of gas? I don't know. You may be wondering why you're seeing this car today. Honestly, I needed a win. I needed a project I could actually accomplish in less than a day. Every single thing I've been involved with lately has been a ridiculous weeks or months long odyssey. I've got giant projects going on all over the place, and you're gonna hear about a bunch of those very soon. I am stupidly busy right now. There are day-to-day jobs and these big projects. Meanwhile, I have all these things that have been sitting around here untouched for ages. In fact, there are two 64 sedans on the property that you've seen in the background of many videos. I've made it my mission to touch everything around here this week while I've got a little bit of extra time. So, I guess we'll see what happens with that. Hey, the good news is all the biggest, dumbest stuff is done on this car now, so if you want to see me finish transforming this into a usable, awesome daily driver, stay tuned for the next episode. Until then, as ever, thank you very much for watching. And remember, if you can't Chrysler it, 300 it. What are the chances that anyone else finds that funny? I think low.